Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you all, and you're very welcome to this webinar in partnership with Midwest ARIES and Mental Health Ireland. My name is Margaret Keane, and I am the Education Training and Development Officer here at Midwest ARIES. For those of you who maybe this is your first time to discover us, maybe you found us on Eventbrite or Facebook, we're the Recovery Education Service here in the Midwest. We are a hybrid service, so we're online like today doing webinars, but we also have online workshops. We have self-paced courses that are available on our website. We're also delivering twice a week in both acute units in Ennis and Limerick, and we're face-to-face in the community as well. So wherever there's a need, we're there with our recovery education. So delighted that you can join us today for this really, I know it's a lovely topic, and we talked about this before, and I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's pretty lovely where I am at the minute. It's actually sunny, but that could stop at any time. I'm just going to ask the panelists there to join me. I'll introduce them in a second, but while they're turning on their videos, just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're here for about an hour, and I hope you can join us. We'll try and stick to the hour. You can communicate with us through the Q&A button. It's right down at the bottom of your screen. And we'd love to hear from you right from the get-go. This isn't a kind of discussion and then questions. We love to get engagement, as we go. So if you have any questions or thoughts even, or just reflections on what's been said, put it in there. I'll see it, and we'll put it to the panelists. The chat at the minute is disabled, but the host, myself, and the co-host can communicate that with you through that, and we'll be putting some links in there as well at various points. So I think I've covered everything in terms of that the basics. So what are we going to do today? So springtime. Yeah, it's a funny one, that shift in, I suppose, the seasons and how it affects our mood. It's something that we come up against, or come up in our workshops all of the time. For me personally, it's a really hopeful time, but I know that's not true for lots of other people. So we're going to have an open and honest conversation with our panelists. And so who are they? Well, first of all, we have Mike O'Neill, who is the manager here at Midwest ARIES. I don't think we could run a workshop without Mike. He's just brilliant. It's great to get his perspective. He has a long career in mental health. Likewise is Rosemary Ryan. Rosemary, who is the area lead for mental health engagement here in HSE Midwest. Delighted to have Rosemary with us. We have Noelle Tanner. Noelle is one of our recovery education facilitators, and I'm sure some of you know Noelle very, very well. And then finally, but by no means least, I should say, is James Fennelly. James has been a great supporter of Midwest ARIES, and again has a huge breadth of knowledge in the area of mental health, but particularly around that piece of connecting with nature. So so that's the panelists, but I'd like to hear from them, just get their voice in the room, and just if I can come to you one at a time and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and maybe just your interest in this particular topic. So Mike, I'll come to you first.
Yep, thanks, Margaret. Yeah, and a bit like yourself, I'm positive about this because I think on a webinar before Christmas, I was talking about the horrors of facing the darkness, and I often use the phrase, "the darkness is my enemy." And but again, how to get out of that and setting those milestones like 21st of December, 1st of February, St. Bridget's Day, and now just seeing that stretch in the evenings, I find it just lifts my mood, and it's a physical and mental, health response to that. So again, delighted to be here. Thanks, Margaret.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I get that. I think there's just that change, getting more light in the back of your eyes is just, yeah, it's hopeful. Rosemary, I might come to you next, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be asked to join this particular webinar because I would, for myself, make a point of being out in nature. So there's two things I'm going to suggest that I think work for me and might inspire people, but I'm interested to hear what others do. And I think for me, it's the experience, like what it does for your senses, being in an outdoor setting. So I have one that's a challenge, I think one that's easier. So hopefully that'll be of interest. But you know, I think we're lucky in this part of the world where we do experience seasons, and I know change can be difficult, but you know, it transforms what's around us. Today now getting hailed on isn't the best, but then it's sunny and things are starting to become green. Like, you know, we're going to go into whole summer, and I love autumn. So, but I also like springtime. But yes, so I share a few of my ideas, and I'm delighted to hear from the other panelists here.
Thanks, Rosemary. And yeah, I'm really interested to see the one that's really challenging. So that's you're going to challenge us with that one. So yeah, delighted, Rosemary, that you're here, and dying to hear about all of that as we get into the discussion. Noelle, I might come to you next, if that's okay.
Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, so as Margaret said, I'm Noelle and I'm a recovery education facilitator with Midwest ARIES. And I suppose, yeah, I like the topic here now, because I think, like Rosemary was saying, it's nice to have the 4 seasons, and I'd agree with that. I like that we have 4 full seasons, and you can see the difference in each season, and each season brings its own challenges and its own rewards, I find, you know. And I think if you can go with that a bit as the seasons come and plan for it, I think it can help a lot. But it also, what I love about the seasons is it just shows that nothing is static. You know, the things are always changing. And I think that, for me personally, really helps me to realize, like, if I'm stuck in something or something's going on, it's not going to stay like that forever. And I think the seasons, if you really kind of, you know, get into them, I don't know another word really, but really, you know, just make use of them, I think, in your journey as well in life. I think they can help a lot, you know, help a lot with your mental health. Yeah.
And thanks, Noelle. And I think, yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. And it's this idea of what's coming out already for me, and that is just, and we're not really into the meat of the discussion, is the idea of change and shifting and moving and forward. You know, you're moving forward. And I love the idea of finding the best in both seasons, you know, or in all the seasons. James, I'll come to you next. Just want to introduce yourself, and yeah, love to hear from you.
Thanks, Margaret. James Fennelly is my name. I'm not a Clare person by nature. I'm from Kildare, but I've spent the last 5 years working for West Clare Mental Health Association as their coordinator and facilitator. I've recently moved into, I suppose, a different sphere personally now. I'm dipping my feet into life coaching and being a well-being advocate. So yeah, nature forms a big part of my lived experience. And coming west, I suppose one of the biggest shocks for me was how dark it is in the morning compared to the East Coast. And I still send pictures back to my brother in Kildare, and it's kind of astounding. So it was a little bit of a piece of work and more learning for me on my journey. Things I had to dip into wrap to put into the toolbox that I didn't need on the East Coast. So yeah, look, the seasons, living with them, you know, connecting with them, and the food as well. I'm a big foodie, so that kind of ties me into the season as well. So yeah, looking forward to having a chat with everyone and seeing what everyone else has in their own toolbox, because we can all learn from each other. Again, what works for me might necessarily work for you, but generally most of these things don't cost anything, just a bit of time and a bit of belief in yourself to try it, at least try things. So yeah, look, happy to be here again, and hello to everyone else on the panel. They're all familiar faces, so it's good to keep connected to them.
It is, James, and I love that idea of you even going into the food piece, and that's what's, you know, eating seasonally, all of those kind of things. As I said, it reminds us that life is moving forward, because sometimes, particularly if you feel unwell, it feels like you're stuck. And you know, it's the environment around you that's probably reminding you that time is moving on. But with that, the potential for growth as well. I think that's what springtime is all about, again, from my own perspective. So right, let's get into the meat of it. So we've already touched a little bit on those seasonal shifts, but let's try to identify. So when it comes to the seasonal shifts, and let's look specifically at springtime, but if other ones come in like autumn and so on, like certainly bring them in. So how do you think it affects our well-being, right? So that seasonal shift, and particularly this move from winter to spring. Like today, it feels like it's all the movement all in one day. As you said, James, you had like snow, sleet, you know, and now the sun is shining. So how do the natural changes of the natural world that we observe in spring influence our mood and overall mental health? So who'd like to take that first? And Mike, thanks. I see your hand raised there. Go for it.
Yeah, great stuff. And I suppose at this time of year, and we all are either in buildings at different stages during the day or we're at home. And I think one of the things that strikes me at this time of year is we tend to open windows more. And the minute you open a window, you'll feel the air come in, you know, but you'll also hear sounds. And that to me is that message of, well, like if we're out in nature, you know, it's to be mindful of that happening because, you know, I think everybody will just react. Oh, it could be kids playing in a playground, you know, it could be, you know, a fire engine, it could be the bin man, it could be birds singing. But there is that thing where it's almost like, oh, just because I've opened the window, this has happened, you know. So if you could have that kind of, oh, this is happening moment, no matter where you are, and becoming aware and grounding yourself, and particularly whether it's in a park, you know, at the beach, you know, going for a walk somewhere. It's just to tap into that thing of, yeah, this is interesting, you know, just be open to it. And I think that would be it. I suppose, yeah, and that just popped into my head there, I suppose, thinking about this. But also, I think just to be aware as well, I kind of, you know, we are part of nature. We're not separate. And I suppose when, you know, it was mentioned there, like the winter, you know, it is that dormant phase, you know, where some animals hibernate. The plants, you know, hibernate, you know, and start to emerge in that new growth at this time of year. So like it can be, you know, a good time as well, I think, maybe to, you know, take stock, review, spring clean the mind as well as the house, you know. Yeah, because again, it's just, yeah, it is that change. And I think we note the change at this time of year. But about being present and being aware, I think is important. Yeah, thanks, Margaret.
And I think, and thanks, Rosemary. I'll come to you in 1 second. I just want to reflect a little bit on that because I think that really ties in, Mike, even in terms of the sound and being really aware of your environment. And that's what allows you to do, just to bring in a little bit of science to that. And I'm going to put this link actually in the chat because I read this and I thought it was a really, really good blog post by Dr. Susan Brannick. She's the clinical director at Aware. And she's got a brilliant blog post called More Than a Walk in the Park, where she looks at, there's actually been several studies and things on the link of nature, connecting with nature and how it can improve our mood and well-being. But one of the things that came up from this, it's called attention restoration theory. And it's that of, just as you said, Mike, you know, improving your attention and your focus, you know, and really, as you said, like listening. So I just think that, yeah, I'll put the link into that and also the link to other studies as well. But I thought just that was interesting. Rosemary, I'll come to you next. So in terms of that, how do you think that seasonal shift can impact?
Yeah, that change, it's evident now. The bird song, which, you know, it's been quieter, so it's starting to come when we'll have summertime with a lot of it. But the thing I would look at is trees and around how they become bare, and you see all the structure. You see, you know, the branches down to twigs, and you can see the shape of a tree in that way. And now there are, on some of the trees, you have the green buds. Some of them will come soon. So just seeing that is springtime kind of growing. And a tree looks very different when it's in full foliage or if it's flowering, you know. So just anywhere where you're passing by trees, or if you have a tree in the garden, you know, we have an evergreen type of tree, so that's very kind of constant and that doesn't change as much. But the deciduous trees, like, even though there's the autumn leaf raking, you know, it's a bit of a task, but now they're going from being dormant like that, and the buds are starting to come. And like, for me, it's very hopeful. And it, you know, it won't be long now until like we've got full foliage. So I like being, if I'm out in the outdoors, anywhere where there's trees, and some of our parks have fantastic trees to look at. Our hedgerows as well. I know there's even things like the hawthorn. It has a shape, and the flowers are going to be beautiful soon. So that catches my attention always.
And it's funny, Rosemary, and again, going back to kind of the science piece and some studies, I thought this, just what you said there around the trees, and this is referenced again in that blog post I just said. So a US study found that lower rates of postnatal depression were linked with green spaces in urban areas, but primarily due to increased tree coverage. And you know, so there is something about that, and you're right. And you see the skeleton of the tree, but then these little tiny buds. And I know, James, from the Woodlands walk, you want to come in on that. You know, what's your experience around the whole kind of woodland piece, the trees?
Yeah, I suppose if we just wind it back just a little bit, that, you know, when we talk about the change into spring, I suppose the big change I think for people is that fall backward with the clock, and it's kind of brutal. You have daylight in the evening, then it's taken away from you straight away. So that's the kind of challenge for people to get through this dark earlier darkness in the evenings, and then until we get into the springtime. And as I say, one thing we've been doing for the last 3 years now is a Woodlands for Wellbeing walk, and we do it 50 weeks of the year basically. We might take a week off at Christmas, but other than that, it's a solid group. There's up to about 20 participants, and we'll have facilitators from West Clare Mental Health and facilitators from the day hospital, the occupational therapists. And it's just, and you could see it over the last probably 4 weeks, probably heightened awareness within the group of that the daffodils were coming, you know. And then next, and we're kind of led by the sea. We watch, you're more acutely aware of what's going on in the woodlands over the course of the year. So, you know, the bluebells, we'll be watching the carpet of bluebells coming up now after probably Easter, and then into the full canopy for the summer, and then back into the autumn as the canopy sheds, and then into the bare for the winter. Like, but yeah, it's evidence-based. Definitely there's science there, and we've participated in with Quilcha in a woodland study before for a walk, a 6-week program, and then the other 6 weeks were carried out in Ennis, and everyone reported an improvement in their overall mood from participating just by walking through the woods. Obviously, we have peer supporters there, so we've people with lived experience. And while it's not really the format for peer support, it's, you know, it's a safe place for people to come, and if they do want to talk about things. But yeah, it's unusual, and when you miss it for a week or two, if you don't, you know, if life gets in the way and you can't get it, you kind of see them when they get back to release, and the satisfaction of being back in the group and being back in the woods. There's, like, we can't put our finger on it really. There's kind of a healing in it, you know. Maybe it's the increased oxygen levels, I don't know, but certainly works better than going walking down the beach or walking up a mountain. For some reason, this is where the evidence leads us, like. And I think the springtime, I think, you know, this seasonal affective disorder syndrome, the SAD syndrome, I think spring is kind of, the body understands there's more sunlight coming in, so there's more vitamin D production there, and that's the science element behind that. We move into spring and summer, we get more vitamin D into the body, and that can help with the mood. So again, there's other things people can do in the winter time, you know, supplement vitamin D into their body when that lack of sunlight. Because when you're getting up and it's dark, and you're working in possibly a dark office all day, and you're coming home when it's dark, it's probably not the best thing to be doing. Like, so you have to, you know, come at different approaches, whether it's vitamin D supplements in the winter or using a light therapy box, which I've used in the past, and I found them to be a game changer. You know, but again, getting out in the woods even in the darkest of the winter mornings is still better than sitting inside.
And James, I just want to kind of follow through a bit on that, and Noelle, then I'll come to you. But there's one question I did specifically want to ask you from your experience, is that community piece, you know, and doing it as a group. I'm sure obviously anyone going for a walk in the woods, you know, that's really beneficial. You know, like every morning I'm getting up, since the last month I've been getting up at 6:30 and going for a walk myself. And what I've been noticing is the change in obviously just the light coming in, and it's amazing because you walk out in the dark and you come back in with the sun coming up, and it is really just a joyful experience. But specifically in terms of doing that in a small group, do you think have you found this benefits for coming together? You've already mentioned the kind of, you're facilitating peer support in a way where people can have those conversations as they walk. Is there anything that you'd like to share around that, the group activity piece?
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch the group dynamic over the last 3 years. Obviously, as the group has grown and new people have come in and new voices, but what we have seen as probably looking in on the group from the outside would be how the group have learned through peer support to build their connections and networks. So now, who's buying firewood and who's buying it off who, and now, there 1 week 3 guys turned up with the same boots from the same shop because one recommended them and another one bought them, and so they're supporting each other in these ways, and the dynamic of the group is such, we probably a 50-50 split, men and women, but obviously there is safety in numbers, and it's probably, I suppose we probably think of it, it's probably male privilege where men wouldn't think twice about going out for a walk in the woods, and so there is safety in numbers there. We've never had any issues. I mean, it's a lovely place to walk, but you get that, and some people you mightn't feel comfortable walking by themselves. So it's a good group. The dynamic is interesting, but really for me was seeing the peer support organically come into the group, and not necessarily about their well-being. It was more day-to-day stuff, where they're getting their car services. Anyone had a problem in one issue or another with, building materials, whatever. And yeah, so they're a very tight-knit group now, and they would have had a Christmas dinner before, just last week of the walk last year, and then a few of them still wanted to walk on Christmas Eve. So, we facilitated it unofficially because everyone is busy. Christmas Eve is the best day to be doing things. But some people thought there was value in going out Christmas Eve and getting to walk in before they got into the bedlam that is the lead up to Christmas.
And again, with Christmas and the stresses that come with that, you can absolutely understand why people wanted that bit of release and that bit of connection, or maybe, you wouldn't know what their situation was at Christmas, maybe that. So it's absolutely brilliant that it's providing that space, and as you said, in a really organic way, not prescribed, where they just go and they have a chat and they're in the moment. Noelle, I'm going to just come to you next in terms of, because I know just from doing the workshops with you that being out in nature, and you've already mentioned that seasonal shift and appreciating all the seasons for what they bring. At the minute, with that change to springtime, how do you feel it's impacting, and even things maybe that you've heard on the on the workshops, just the general feeling around that move to spring?
Even with that, just definitely for me, seasons are associated with our emotions, and our moods are associated with our seasons. I think that's really relevant to be aware of, and how it makes you feel. Like, you could see a lot of people would have a lot of anxiety maybe in the winter time, and some people have the winter blues and will feel maybe a bit isolated or alone. And for some, then it's about recuperating and resting, and that's the time to do that. And then when spring comes, it's trying to make that shift. I think that's where it can be difficult for people, because also James had mentioned the time, and I think even that the hour, it mightn't seem a lot, but for some people their sleep pattern is so affected, and to get used to that change again, it definitely has an impact on people. So spring can be difficult to kind of move into for some people, and I think if you can, though, it can bring hope, and it can bring a lot of, I think you do feel more energy in springtime. The light, like Mike said, first thing I do is open my windows. I love that air coming into the house. Even if I do laugh when my family come over to visit, I always think my house is cold, but it's only because I love my windows open. I just love fresh air through the house, and especially in springtime. I think once it hits the 1st February, I get something about it, but just that, I think the mood is a thing that's really highly affected. But I think you start thinking more about doing things in springtime. I think it just gives you that little extra push. And nature makes you aware of that. I think not consciously, you know what I mean? Because you're seeing the changes outside and it makes you want to move forward. And like I know when spring hits, first thing I'm thinking about is spring cleaning in the house, you know, and decluttering and making space and not having any clutter around. And then later on in spring, then I'm going out to my garden. I'm waiting to get out there to cut back and like already cut back now. Like my son is out there cutting the grass at the moment, you know, like, so even those things, you know, like I'm itching for that now as spring comes, you know, because I know for me personally, nature just is so, so important in my life because I live in the I'm lucky I live in the countryside. I'm surrounded by trees, I'm surrounded by greenery, I'm just surrounded by plants, everything that I just see from the minute I wake up in the morning to the last thing I see going to bed at night. And that really has a positive impact in my life. But we were actually in a workshop yesterday and it was actually with a group of men really, and we were just saying about, you know, the freedom when you were younger of just running through the fields, running down to the rivers. You know, you just instinctively took those things for granted. You just did them, and you know, your parents be shouting at you to come back for your tea, be saying, "Where are you gone all day?" You know, we were just talking about that. But the difference nowadays, how that you don't see that nowadays with younger people, or even with ourselves. You know, as we get older, we become more structured in our lives, and then that kind of release we had is kind of, we let that go a lot, you know what I mean? And I've realized as I'm getting older, I'm bringing that way more back into my life by making sure I'm out in nature every day, embracing it, listening to it, listen to the sounds. I love the sounds of nature, watching I love sitting down there. I actually bought a couch by my window so I could just look out at nature and just watch just even the movements of everything,
And,
you know?
and I think you've highlighted something there, I think, Noelle, that's important because some people can't leave their house
Yeah.
for whatever reason, through disability, social anxiety, all those kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, I'd love us to try and find some, you know, as you said, like looking at how to actually engage with nature from within, because it is so important. Like, is it taking plants in, that kind of stuff? I'm going to come to you in a sec, Rosemary, because I know you want to come in on this. But again, just to talk to the participants there, please, if you have anything you'd like to share with the group, with ourselves, and put it in the Q&A, we would genuinely love to hear from you, and particularly in terms of how you're feeling at the moment. Are you finding it that it's hopeful, or are you finding it difficult? You know, I think, you know, we can't make the assumption that springtime is all good. For some people, it may not be. Even that change again, James, is not just going from the, you know, the when we change the clocks back, but coming up in a few weeks that we're going to be, you know, changing the clocks the other way, and that's going to cause some more problems. But Rosemary, I'll come to you now. So please do share if you've got anything in the Q&A, please.
Yeah, just a really quick one. That bit about like freedom or things you might do as a kid that you might do less now. But it makes me think of like being in your bare feet and, you know, running across grass. Like for a grounding exercise, I would take shoes and socks off and stand on, it's not a fancy lawn, it's a bit of grass, and just be on the ground, you know, and it's cold now. So you have like cold sensation, maybe it's wet, a lot of the mornings now as well, but it's a totally different feeling. And, you know, even as it goes into the summer, if we have the chance, you have the shoes off and just to run across, if it's a field or a park, it's a very different sensation. And it taps into what maybe you did as a kid, or, you know, I definitely encourage my kids to take the shoes and the socks off. But I think when we're older, this walking across stones is a different experience, but it's sensory stuff as well. It just feels really good to do that.
I love that. That's a really practical thing to do. Just don't get pneumonia, but don't do it in the snow. But no, it is absolutely that whole kind of grounding exercise, just putting your feet down and just feeling all the feelings. You know, if your head is I'm sure if your head is spinning with all sorts of ruminations, you're standing there, you're just going to feel the cold in your feet, and it's going to, you know, maybe perhaps try to calm you down and stop those thoughts. Mike, I'll come to you, and then Noelle, I know you want to come in on this. I'll come to you next. So Mike, I'll just come to you there if you want to come in.
Perfect. Thanks, Margaret. And just as Rosemary was saying that, I was going to come in on something else, but it just reminded me about 25 years ago. I had a cousin who came home from the States and they lived in Las Vegas, and she brought her young family, first time coming over, 5 small children. And here we were waiting for the visit, you know, and all the family, the extended family was in her old family home where everybody was waiting. And the cloud was down to about here. It was miserable. It was August, but it was a shocker. And we were all saying, "What, this is going to be a disaster." But like as Rosemary said, the kids, when they jumped out of the car on arrival, instinctively, they just took off their shoes and socks and walked in the wet grass. They had never felt wet grass, you know. So some things, you know, but so when you look at what's within our control, yes, there's not stopping any of us. Even today, I guarantee you, we can all find wet grass somewhere, you know, and there is that grounding thing in it and being present and being mindful. And I just, again, so I'll come back to what I was going to say. And I think it was last year, could have been the year before, but I visited a friend one Sunday. And as I walked in the door, and he was there looking at the Sunday Times, and he says, "Look at this," he says here. And there was a full page on mindful walking. And he says, "Look at this," he says. This is written by a psychologist, and all it's saying is turn off your phone, leave it behind, take notice, listen to the birds, look around you, be present and being aware. And he says, this is a new thing, mindful walking. But sure, is that not what we just called going for a walk? You know? So it is that thing of, yeah, either do it, you know, switch back on to, yeah, we've always done this. We are aware, we do take notice, and to be present. And I think sometimes, well, why would we do that? You know, because we all have busy lives, and why, you know, we might have a bit of chaos, we might have worries. But sometimes when we can step out of that, it's respite. You know, I'm giving myself I'm now active, and I know myself and Margaret would have talked, particularly at the end of the last year and the start of this year, about making change. But you can't sit around and wait for it to happen. You have to be proactive in it, and you have to be switched on. And yeah, this is something I am going to do because I know there is going to be benefits. So we're not talking about climbing Mount Everest. None of us are talking about doing anything. We're talking about take off your shoes and socks. It's as simple as that. Open the window and listen, you know, or just feel that rush of air when it comes in. So the stuff within our reach, I know you talked about maybe people with disability and isolation, and maybe it is, you know, a pot plant. You know, watch that flowering, you know, take care of it. Like, we don't have to, you know, there's stuff within our control here. And it is, you know, look at what we can tap into, you know. So,
And
yeah.
I love that, Mike, that whole idea of respite. And it's so true. Yeah, like, yeah, I have houseplants. I've killed many of them, but some of them are still surviving, thank God. But sometimes just touching them, you know, feeling them, the ferns, how light they are, like really having that, just kind of slow down the experience, the cacti, you know, are they, you know, yeah. And you said, open the window, listening. Get a bird, if you can get somebody to have a bird bath or a bird feeder outside so you can watch the birds. That's one of my favorite things to do. I know, Mike, we've spoken about that. You love that as well. So there are things we can do from inside and observing nature. I'll come to you in a sec. No, I just want to share something Christopher just shared with us. And it's, I love this, grounding every evening. Take your shoes off when you get into the house. Just, yeah, like that in itself. And again, just getting yourself, the feet on the floor, feeling whether it's carpet or wood or, you know, lino, just, and all the different textures in that. Love that, Christopher. And again, if anybody else has any, just any ideas of how you can connect both inside and outside, you know, please share it with us. Noelle, I'll just come to you there. I know you wanted to share.
No, I'm just going to share, actually, in the workshop yesterday, one man said that when he comes in his front door every day, he takes shoes and socks off and just does it in the house. So it doesn't have to be outside. It can be inside. Like, obviously, if you can go outside with it, it is nice. I'm like Rosemary now. I have a garden out there. I hate socks. They're my pet hate. I just have to wear them in the winter here. But as soon as I come in that door, shoes and socks are gone off my feet because I love my feet being free, and I love walking outside there, but the man was saying he just loves coming in, the different textures on the different floors and just feeling it, and it just brings him that instant calm. And it was just lovely to hear, and for the group to hear yesterday. And it was just such a simple, it's so simple. And I think even if you've got, you know, if maybe if you live in a urban and you don't have the greenery and stuff, it's having the plants in your house or the seeds, but it's also just noticing. I think it all comes down to noticing and the awareness of what's around you, because nature is there everywhere for everybody. It's not all, you don't have to have certain things to embrace nature. It's there, but we just don't take the time to observe it and notice it. You can just you sit down, look out your window, and you'll see so many different changes out that window that'll surprise you, you know. So I think noticing it, just taking the time to notice. Nature is there, it's telling us it's there, it's always around us, you know. It's us humans are so busy and just take it for granted. You know, we just need to stop and notice. And I think that's the big learning thing for me.
Yeah, and I love that. Again, it goes to that attention piece, doesn't it? Of being
Yeah.
full in the attention and intention. As Mike was saying, sometimes you just need to make that commitment, you know. And again, I'd love to hear from the participants, you know, is there anything here that we've said that you might think, oh no, I don't agree with that. We'd love to hear that as well. Just to see, you know, just to get an idea of, you know, and I suppose I'm going to come to this now actually, because it sounds like nature is great. I think we're all saying that. Yeah, it gives all these benefits. But what do you think are the main barriers to people actually engaging with nature? I don't know, James, if you want to come in on that first, because again, you're you know, you've led in West Clare Mental Health Association, so you probably would have seen that. So how did you bring those people in? And yeah, so what are the main barriers, and how can people overcome them?
I suppose probably one of the biggest barriers for people is time, or perceived lack of time, because they're so busy. So we would always say to people, and you know, when people are doing rap courses, or if I was presenting rap to people, I would always say one word people wouldn't like to be associated with themselves by others is to be known as selfish. But you know, when you're talking about your own wellness and well-being, sometimes you have to be a little bit selfish. You have to make the time for yourself and say, this is my half an hour now, 10 minutes for grounding, or I'm going for a walk. And you have to break down that, I suppose, barrier internally and say, no, look, I'm taking some time for myself now. The world isn't going to stop for that half an hour when you're not in the house. The dinner can be ready. It can be on, you know, prepping the housework or whatever. Things can wait. You know, you have to invest time in yourself. And that's probably one of the biggest barriers for people. There's a guilt there that, you know, they feel something is being neglected when they're neglecting themselves. So I would always be advocating for people that you have to look at your schedules, look at your diaries, and then see where you can take that. It doesn't have to be the hour. It can be 15 minutes, 20 minutes here. And like one thing which I'm a great believer and a great advocate in would be cold water therapy. So that, you know, and around West Clare, you would have a regular group who meet in Kilkee at 10 o'clock every morning and go in for a dip. They're not Olympic swimmers. They just get into the cold water for a dip. You would have another group in Whitestrand. Jean Clohessy leads that group. You would have another group up in Snobsauce, I think up in Spanish Point. And I'm a firm believer in that. But look, again, it's looking at breaking down the barrier. So if any of the times any of these groups meet, whether it's you're not able to get there because you're working or another restriction, well then it's something to be replicated in your house. You get in and have a cold shower, and again I would dip into this regularly as part of my well-being, and I don't think anyone would ever say they've enjoyed the cold shower. And I don't think people particularly enjoy getting into the cold water, but it's the benefits they feel when they get out. That's when you've got the release of the endorphins, and that's that free shot of multivitamins for your brain, essentially, you know. So you'd always say to people, remember a few years ago, there was this ice bucket challenge where people sat down in front of the camera and threw it. And it's that fight or flight instinct that kicks in as soon as that cold water takes your breath. But if you just sit with it And I tell anyone or everyone who will do it, sit with it for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and your breathing will return to normal. And I don't know, you might be able to get the link up, Margaret. I can't find it here. But a great starting point is a guy called Wim Hof. And he deals a lot with breath work and cold water therapy. And he set multiple world records. A very interesting guy. But it's something I prescribe to personally as for well-being. And again, if you can't get out of the house to do it, like you're saying, set up the bird feeder and watch the birds in the garden. It's better than watching anything on your television or phone. And go upstairs and have a cold shower for a minute or two and challenge yourself. You're not going to break.
I love that. I love that that idea of just that, challenge yourself. You're not going to break. I think that's something I'm going to take with me, because sometimes we can just get very comfortable in our own almost discomfort, and it takes a choice to break out of that. I know, Mike, you want to come in on that cohort therapy. I did try it, but I wasn't that brave. Maybe I need to go back to it again. I just want to go to just a couple of just reflections there from the panelists, and then I'll come to yourself, Mike. So Joe says, that's so true, James. You have to put boundaries around your health. Absolutely. It's all in terms of self-care. It's not selfish. You know, you can't pour from an empty cup, as they often say in our workshop. Christopher again shares that he works with adults with intellectual disabilities, and in their schedules every day they have a time out to do what they feel that what they feel is grounding. I think that's what you said there, Christopher. If not, please add more to it. But yeah, that's fantastic. Mike, I'll come to you. I know you wanted to come in on that.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. And again, and it is that perception of time. It's a little note I have here in my hand, and I keep this here all of the time. There's 24 hours in a day. There's 168 hours in a week. If you're fortunate enough to sleep 8 hours at night, that's another 56 hours. And then if you're fortunate enough to have, you know, a job to go to, that's another 40 hours, you know. So, and even so, if it was a parent who was taking care of children at home, 40 hours, you know, as a fair input into that. But that leaves in a week 74 hours. You know, and so when you're looking at, or 72 hours, so if you're looking at, you have 72 hours, yeah, like, so nothing wrong with taking out a couple of hours for yourself out of that, you know. And so I suppose to add on to that, it depends on how disciplined you are, because I suppose I like to go off cycling on my own, and I call it my comfort cycle. And it's out in nature, and I have little stops along the way that I have my spaces where I actually stop, you know, and I'll pull in at a gate into a field, and and sometimes just close my eyes and listen. And it could be a tractor in the distance, it could be crows, it could be the wind rustling in the leaves. And again, and I call it my comfort cycle, because I just find that very comforting and very grounding. And then I'll go on about my business, you know, continue cycling around. But again, just taking in the sights and the sounds, you know, on that. And I do it at my own time. And I do it on my own, you know. But what I will say, so if somebody is out there and then saying, oh, I'd like to do that, or just even go for a walk, arrange it with somebody else. Because if you arrange it with somebody else, you will commit. I don't want to let that person down, you know, so you're more likely to do it, you know, just like Rosemary mentioned earlier about the hailstones falling here, you know. But if you arrange to do it with somebody, so whether that's, you know, going for a walk in the woods, you know, cold water swimming, jumping in a barrel, or just taking your shoes off and going for a walk around the local green or something. But if you know, it's difficult to do stuff on your own if you know, if you're finding that the challenge, you know, so check in with somebody else and say, will we do this? And then you're more likely to succeed. Thanks.
I think it's a really lovely kind of practical idea to do that, Mike. As you said, it's all about making commitment, and yeah, we're those kind of creatures. We show up for other people, sometimes not for ourselves, but this is at least, you know, in our own interest to do that. Rosemary, I am absolutely fascinated by these two activities. One you said is easy enough. The other one's a wee bit of a challenge. So I don't want to end the webinar without going there. So
yeah, no, James is on the same wavelength. It was actually, someone said to me they found cold water dipping really beneficial. I said, yep, I'm up for trying this. So I started with a Christmas morning. I got wet. I'd say it was 30 seconds. So that was my first one. And then it's hard to explain how invigorated you feel afterwards. And it is hard, 30 seconds. I should have stuck for a bit longer. But then in the summer, I started in the summer, and I got myself, into a routine then. And there's evidence building around the cardiovascular benefits. And I have read Wim Hof's book. So he's some breathing things that you can do, but it's bracing. And you can't think about anything else when you're in there. And it's only for a few minutes. Like, I'm not an open water swimmer, because I know that's another way you can go, but it's in my local area, it's the River Shannon there. There's a place to go in, people go together, and when you come out, and people bring flasks of tea, and that it's just really, can't explain it. Why would you get yourself really cold? But it's the warming up, and having taken the challenge, that is what's big about it. And the other thing was, we were saying about barriers there, and for me, it's to go for a run. And running starts with walking, but there is no cost, I don't think we've spoken about anything here which has to have a cost associated with it. And in fairness, you have to have a certain level of fitness to kind of run and chat with someone. You can walk and chat side by side, and as your fitness builds, you can also like run and chat. And I love to do that if I'm meeting someone. Say, look, can we just chat on the run? But there's a period of time of getting fit where it'll be like, but the cost barrier. I mean, you could go different directions with it, but it doesn't start with a big cost. A baseball cap, hail, that's the main one.
One thing, Rosemary, I did that really has helped me with my month of walks, and I'm going to continue because it's been really good for me and good for my health and good for all sorts of things, was buying some decent wet gear. To be honest, I really, if you can, and look, charity shops have a lot of that stuff in sometimes, this kind of secondhand sellers as well, but it has really helped. So I have no excuse in the morning. If it's hail, rain or snow, I have to get out there, and it's actually been really good. So that's my recommendation is, if you've got the right clothes, you've no excuse. You have to kind of kick yourself out there. Just coming to just one, have a think there who next wants to kind of come in on this. And again, thinking about the kind of obstacles, barriers, or anything you really want to share. But I just want to come to Claire, who shared that she's enjoying the talk. So she's thanking us all, which is brilliant. And thanks, Claire, for being here. You mentioned some studies at the beginning that sounded really interesting. Where did you see the links to those were, please? I've actually put them in the chat area. So if you just open the chat, it will be there, Claire. The first one that I put in is actually a really good one. It is one that's referenced in the aware.ie blog post that I mentioned, and it actually gives really practical ideas of how to connect with nature, and across various different ways, almost what we've discussed today. And there's also links within that to the studies. So I hope that's okay. And Wim Hof, I just put the name in there. If you do a search for that, for cold water therapy, he's the man when it comes to these things. And I wish I was braver. That's all I can say. One other thing, Anya wants to share. I find the short sea swim a great grounding experience, but not always accessible in my area. And again, accessibility is a problem, but find the brief cold immersion at the start or end of a shower is awakening too. There you go, James. Somebody's actually doing that and putting that into practice. And I think what's coming out for me is, it doesn't have to be, it's not the mountain you're climbing, or, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It's a daily choice that we're making to actually embrace with nature and ourselves and grounding. I'm going to come with, and this is the important, I'm going to come to each of you, and this is the final question, unless something else comes in, and then we'll go to a bit of signposting. But we always kind of end with this, and this idea of one piece of advice, and it's rarely just one piece of advice, but what's the one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who really wants to engage with nature, and for whatever reason, maybe it's just how they're feeling, even feeling about their body, what would you give them to actually get out in nature to support their mental health at any time during the year, not just with springtime? Who'd like to come in on that first? So the one piece of advice. Anything that's popped into your head? Noelle, I'll come to you. Thanks for that.
No, I'm just laughing with the cold water because I just to say I love cold waters, but like I have cold showers all the time. For years I have cold showers. In the summer I don't have hot showers at all. I have just cold showers. And we're lucky we've the lake as well. So we go, you know, into the lake, which is I find it easier because you just get straight into it. Whereas when you go into the sea, you're kind of having to work your way out of it. So that's a handy thing. But I suppose just thinking about it, you know, like it's great to have groups and great to go and do things, but a lot of people have social anxiety, and that's the thing that comes up constantly in the workshops. And when you have social anxiety, it's very, very difficult to kind of go, you know, to push yourself to go forward. And I think when you're coming into spring and you're thinking about it, you're seeing so many people outside walking and doing activities that it heightens it more, I think, because you feel you're comparing yourself to that. Some people will compare themselves to that, and then it makes them feel worse about themselves. So I just think if they're not able to link in with a group, link in with one person and just say, look, I'd like to go for a short walk, or I'd like to do whatever. You know, would you support me in it? So it could be a family member or a friend. So I just think ask for the support and just have that one person that you feel you can get that support from, and just to gently guide yourself into that. And just remember, small steps lead to big leaps. That's what I think, you know. So just start small and just, you know, maybe you'll go from that one person to then moving in and joining a group, you know, but just don't feel pressured when you see others doing it, that you feel, you know, less, you know, you're more conscious about yourself, or maybe lower self-esteem is a lot to do with it as well. So I think, you know, start small, start with one person.
And I think that's really important, because again, you know, I mean, maybe your body image yourself isn't great, and or for all sorts of reasons, and as you say, it comes up in the workshops quite a lot. But that idea of starting small and being gentle with yourself, Noelle, I love that. I love that.
Well,
And non-judgmental, and just
yeah.
giving it a go, and going at your own pace, and not feeling you are in competition with
No.
anyone.
Because that's
or
what
yourself.
happens, and that's what comes up a lot. And what people find is it's not. I wouldn't even say, a lot of the time it's not the body image. Even I'd say it's the awkwardness of connection, feeling awkward. Connect, you know, with too many people. I can't. It's just too awkward in that situation.
Yeah.
They don't know how to be themselves. And even yesterday that came up. So starting with that one trusted person, and that's what everyone kind of felt. That one person that can help them. You need that support to get you going.
Thanks, Noelle. That absolutely. So that one person. Michael, come to you next. I think there's something there in the Q&A as well I'll share. So I'll come to you now.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a very short phrase, and it came up in different discussions and at other events. And I think right now, whether you're, you know, if it's social anxiety you have, or if you can't get out or you want to get out, and I think it just starts with being curious. You know, maybe there's something in this, you know, and I'd say, and if you give it a go, you could say, well, I can safely say sitting here, you'll never get me in cold water. It's as simple as, it's not going to happen. But there's other things, you know, that might say, well, I like to go for a walk. You know, I like to leave the phone at home, you know, or turn off the phone if I have to have it with me, you know, just so as not to be interrupted. But it comes back to just make the time. But I think it starts with being curious. Maybe there's something in this connecting with nature, Lark, you know, yeah, that's it. Give it a go. Find your connection. You know?
Love that, Mike. Be curious. Yeah. Be nosy. Have a look out your window. See what's happening. What's happening in nature. Rosemary, one piece of advice, and if we could just keep it a wee bit brief now, because I want to do that signposting. Sorry to put pressure on you there now.
No problem. The bit about meeting up with someone and just making a start is important. You don't have to join a club, or, you know, there are park runs on every Saturday morning at 9:30. If someone said, I'd like to run, and everyone that's there started walking, and there's people that walk, and then there's kind of walk, jog, and then there's others, they're years down the road. So, you know, there is no need to compare yourself to others, and, you know, you will get there at your pace. So there's no, you don't have to put a barrier of cost in front of you. There's things close by you. I think we all discovered walking loops when there was restrictions on. So I'd look for something nearby, and someone that you could meet up with. Then you have to go because you told them you would, you know, that really helps.
Thanks, Rosemary. That absolutely. Just coming to a participant here, just want to share, and then I'll come to you, James, again with that one piece of advice. If there's a dog rescue home nearby, that person, I found it a way to get out of my head. So obviously had maybe volunteered, I think, in the dog rescue. And I think actually volunteering is a great way to get involved with groups if you feel that you can do that. Volunteer Ireland, it's a fantastic organization. We have a local one here in Ennis that I know quite well. And yeah, even things like tidy towns, you know, going out there, you often see them, you know, tidying up and stuff like that. That's getting out in nature, you know, but doing a collective thing. I'll come to you, James, now, just with that one piece of advice.
My one piece of advice would be, it kind of ties in with what people have mentioned already, would be to build a routine. And in order to do that, you have to stick at it. And I always go back to George Bernard Shaw, his quote, "Ever try, ever fail, no matter. Try again, fail better." So if you can only do your grounding for a minute today, okay, tomorrow try and go for a minute, build it up a little bit, but routine is the key. Walking in the woods for one day isn't going to really affect your mood. And having one cold shower is not really going to do a whole lot for you. You have to stick at it. So don't quit. That would be my thing. Just keep going. It will improve things.
That's brilliant, James. And James, if people want to get in touch with you in terms of the woodland walks, and you mentioned other items there in terms of cold water swimming, is there anything or a link you can share, or even if you can give it to me and I can put it in the chat? So I don't know if you've got access to the chat area there on your phone, but it would be lovely if people needed to connect with you. And even after the fact, I can send it out with the learner pack as well. So if you have a link as well. Thanks, James. Right, well, all I want to do is actually just go through a little bit of signposting from our end. And thanks to the panelists. It's been absolutely fantastic around the discussion. Just bear with me for a second. I'm just going to go back to sharing the slides here. And can everybody see that? Yeah? Yep. Okay, great stuff. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, we are a hybrid service. So there's lots of workshops covering lots of different things, everything from self-care to creativity to anxiety. We cover, and everything in between we cover. So if you want to attend any of our workshops, we have our online workshops are available to book either through our website, and the website is midwestaries.ie. We've got this, you know, we've got exploring anxiety, self-care, building more resilience, and less talk depression coming up in March. We're also right across the Midwest, and delighted. We have some fantastic partners, and we're so grateful for them. Shannon Family Resource Centre, we're there in March and April, and you can actually book that through Shannon Family Resource Centre's website itself. We're there with self-care again, creativity for well-being, journaling for well-being. And again, in the creativity piece, what comes up again and again is gardening, you know, again, getting out in nature. We're also with Silver Arch Family Resource Centre in North Tip in April and May, I believe. I just need to move this out of the way. And we're in Neenah, Newport and Borrisokane, again, looking at the self-care piece. It comes up again and again. James was saying, make it a priority. It's so important. And Limerick Lifelong Learning Festival is coming up, and I would strongly, you know, if there's something you want to kind of learn or do, and I'm sure there's things on gardening and all sorts of stuff in nature, do check out the Limerick Lifelong Learning Festival website. We're running specifically for that in the Hunt Museum, our Creativity for Wellbeing workshop. We love doing it. We do 7 of them a year with the Hunt Museum. And so there's a section where we discuss creativity, and the other part is actually a practical hands-on piece. And I know they actually do some gardening pieces in the Hunt Museum as well. So check all those websites out. You would never know what you might find that might help you in that desire, I suppose, to reconnect or connect again with nature. Again, we are in April and May. We are in the Clare Libraries. Yeah, absolutely, really excited about this. We had our first workshop in Ennis Library there a few weeks ago. It went absolutely brilliantly. It's a beautiful venue. we're back there again in May, but also we're back in Ennistimon, which is brilliant, in April. And then, yeah, we have a series of workshops available from midwestaries.ie. And one of them actually is a whole self-care course as well. They're all available there. So, you know, if it's something you want to explore, go ahead. We'd love to have you look at those. And that's our website. There's everything there. There's even an interactive HSE service map as well, if you're looking for information on services. This is who we are. That's obviously Mike is there, and myself if you need our if you need to get in contact with us. Now I'm going to stop that share now. The webinar has been recorded, so it will be available on our YouTube channel and also as a long form podcast through our. It's available through Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts from, and it's called the Wellness Panel, and it's great because it just gives us that ability just to, you know, you can share this with anyone. I think, do we have any other Q&As in there? I just want to just check. Did I answer everything? Yeah. So it just, I suppose, one thing, and thanks Noelle for putting the feedback form in, if you enjoyed, or even if you didn't enjoy, if you want to just give us some feedback that will help us to improve the series, there's a link there in the chat for the feedback form. We would love to hear from you. It just leaves me to say a huge thank you to the panelists. Thank you to Mike, Rosemary, Noelle, and James. I don't know if you just want to open your mics there, guys, and just say goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. And look, whatever you do today, maybe, you know, have a look out your windows, Mike said, open the window, take a big deep breath in, go out into the garden, as Rosemary said, you know, and put your feet in the ground. Or as Noelle was saying, and we had one of our participants say the same thing, you know, take off your shoes indoors and feel that space and those under your feet, or have a cold shower, and that's certain wake everybody up. So look, we'll hope to see you again soon. We're not back until May. Mental Health Ireland will be actually running the webinar in April, but I hope you can join us then. And whatever you do, just be kind to yourself and have a great day. Thanks for everything. Bye-bye.